as of today. We're launching the version 2 of the SRIA today. The main author of this is Patrick Flammarion, and he is about to talk to us about it now. Just one or two small things before Patrick's presentation. There is, of course, a poster session, which is the researchers from the pilot call and some other framework program researchers, and their posters are very, very interesting, and they are in the room midway between the two coffee rooms. So there's a poster session, an opportunity to see them at lunchtime, of course, and also later on in the afternoon, where there's dedicated time for looking at them. I would ask you, please, to talk to the people at the posters, because they have put a lot of effort into it, and ask them to explain their work and what they have done, what they've achieved, and what they're hoping to do. So that's important. After Patrick's presentation, I'm going to hand the chair over to Miguel on my left, who is going to moderate the first roundtable discussion, and the people who are in the first roundtable will then join Miguel at this desk here, and they will give presentations from their seats rather than taking the podium, just to save a couple of minutes here and there. Short presentations just on their thoughts, no overheads, no need for overheads. But the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda, this is version 2. Patrick has been living and eating and sleeping with this for quite a while, and I think, Patrick, today you can, a bit like Enrique, you can say, been there, done that, have the T-shirt. So over to you, Patrick.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very glad to be here today to introduce you to the second version of the SRIA, of the Water JPI. I'm director of the Water Scientific Department of IRSTEA, a research institute in France, member of the French Research Alliance Alain V. And I'm addressing you today more specifically as the work package 3 leader of the Water project, for which the main objective was the development of a sharply focused and a realistic strategic research agenda, based on the mapping and analysis of the state of the art, and based on internal and external consultations. And these 3 years, more than 3-year task, has proved to be very challenging, time demanding due to the subject, and we are pleased to be able to present it today. I've not been alone. We have been 13 partners in the Water WP3 work package, and almost 20 people directly involved, and hundreds of people during the workshops, as well as the advisory board. So many people have been involved in the SRIA 2.0. It has been a very collective process. The SRIA is a strategic document that lays out research and innovation needs in the field of water in order to guide research and innovation in Europe, because it will be used to framework Europe work programs in the field of water, and because it is a crucial element of the objective of alignment of national and European programs, strategies, and the SRIA is therefore the backbone of the Water JPI. The redaction of the SRIA has followed an iterative process. This approach has served the purpose of building a document in accordance with emerging needs in the water domain, and also to take into consideration views of a very broad base of Water JPI partners and stakeholders. The publication of the Water JPI vision document in 2011 was triggered a long process of collection of information, analysis, redaction, that led to the release of the SRIA 0.5 in May 2013 and to the SRIA 1.0 in June 2014. And now SRIA 2.0 has just been finalized at the beginning of the year and was approved by the governing board in April 2016. So As you can see also, both SRIA 1.0 and SRIA 2.0 are followed by implementation plans. These plans developed activities based on the priorities identified in SRIA and will in time be realized through the water JPI and through also various EU and national funding mechanisms. But the SRIA is not only based on the principle of iteration. In order to guarantee an integrated vision for water research, it requires a multidisciplinary approach, as economic, ecological, societal challenges are to be addressed. It is also resulted from a comprehensive and consultative process that didn't leave stakeholders by the wayside. In order to fulfill the objective of the 3I, it was important to conduct a large review of information sources. This process of collection and analysis of information was necessary to improve the understanding of the water landscape by looking at water policy, RDI programs, existing societal, scientific, and technological challenges. We have devoted a considerable amount of time for the selection, review of the relevant documents. And this process was used as a way to identify current and emerging RD needs and objectives in a very comprehensive manner. You have strategic agendas, European programs, 3Rs from other JPIs, national agendas, strategic agendas from WSSTP, EIP, and so on, and also up to 48 foresight studies that helped us to see in the long term the emerging needs in foresight scenarios. So we coupled both foresight and needs from the stakeholders and scientific side. In addition to this intense analysis of information sources, we developed participatory approaches. And since the beginning of the project, the involvement of multiple stakeholders and society was supported by our work package. And a strong consultation process was organized. For each document, 3R 1.0 and 3R 2.0, stakeholders' workshops were organized. And 2 consultative public consultations were also launched online. And it was excellent opportunities to gather views on the identification and prioritization of research needs. It then clearly resulted in an improvement of the document, sharing this document and these RD needs with a lot of people, gathering their minds together. While you can see on this slide an overview of the agenda for the 3R 2.0 process, I would like to highlight the role played by the members of the Water JPI's governance, the governing board, and the advisory boards, who were included in every steps and reinforced the process. Let's jump into the 3R. The Water JPI vision document was our starting point, as it outlined the main research and innovation themes of the Water JPI. And the 3R was developed of this vision document and this vision document structure on 5 themes that had been identified in the vision document: improving ecosystem sustainability and human well-being, developing safe water systems for citizens, promoting competitiveness in the water industry, implementing a water-wise bio-based economy, closing the water cycle gap, improving sustainable water resources management. Following a 3-branch structure, each of these 5 themes was then broken down into a number of sub-themes and a number of RD needs and objectives. It's important to underline that the 3R is not just a compilation of all the needs found in numerous sources. It is a source analysis of their scientific relevance, societal impacts, as each of the 5 themes is built on a sharp and detailed structure that introduce the stakes, develop the expected impact, and list all the identified needs that are prioritized. The next 5 slides will give you an insight of the technical content of the 3R 2.0. The 3R covers the full and broad range of RDE activities, from academic research to innovation. For each team, we look into 5 types of expected impacts: social, economic, technological, environmental, policy. You have seen them in the introductory of the 3R 2.0. And on these slides, you have only a few examples of these expected impacts. Theme 1, improving ecosystem sustainability. The goal of Theme 1 is to maintain the essential functions, processes, and services of water bodies and ecosystems over the long term, and to achieve a balance between the exploitation of water for socio-economic development and conserving ecosystem services. RDE needs, for instance, are to optimize ecosystem services, ecological functioning of ecosystems, establishing pressure impact relationships, restoring continuity, connectivity, prevent hydroclimatic events, predict drought events and water scarcity. The goal of Theme 2 is to develop safe water systems, paying attention to the impacts of emerging pollutants, of floods, water infrastructure, because water distribution and storage may be old and their performance far from optimum. And RDE needs includes, for instance, remediation of pollutants, predicting risk emerging pollutants, progressing towards flood-proof city, improving the performance of urban water systems. Promoting competitiveness in the water industry, because this sector is an important contributor to economic growth and job creation. Theme 3 supports innovative tools and processes, information and communication technologies, energy efficiency, K technologies, as well as new regulatory frameworks and new education and governance regarding innovation. RDE needs include, for instance, developing water reuse, recycling technologies, concepts, smart water technologies, water energy nexus, and so on. The bioeconomy sector in Europe is expected to increase pressure on natural resources. And the overall goal of Theme 4 is to encourage the sustainable use of water resources by the economy sector, including, of course, agriculture, and to safeguard water resources by reducing and limiting pollution. RDE needs include, for instance, innovative and efficient irrigation systems, practices, reducing diffuse pollution, assessing impacts of pollution, developing new integrative simulation models for soil, water, and crop management. In many regions, it may be difficult to reconcile water supply and demand, both in terms of quantity and quality, by enabling the sustainable management of water resources. For this, the Theme 5 will bring together ecology, social sciences, economics, geosciences, technologies, data, sensors, models. RDE needs include, for instance, adaptive water management for global change, integrated economic and social analysis into decision-making processes, promoting new governance and knowledge management approaches for water management. That is for the 5 themes, but it's important to underline that 3R 2.0 is not only structured on these 5 thematic pillars, but simultaneously takes into consideration cross-cutting issues. As you can see in this slide, a number of RDE needs or objectives are obviously linked to others within the 3R. And it shows how a number of key water-related issues addressed in the document are relevant to all 5 teams of the Water JPI 3A and even to other challenges. I would like also to salute the efforts made in terms of communication to facilitate the accessibility of the greatest possible number of people to the 3A, because the 3A technical document is a bit heavy. 100 of pages, and you have 200 references. That is also an important input of this 3-year work. But indeed, in addition to the release of the technical document, a public-friendly version has been published. This introduction to the 3A 2.0 is an easy-to-read and shorter, but still comprehensive version of the 3A to be disseminated across a wide range of readers. And a glossary will also be available online with a definition of terms used in the 3A. It will be made interactive with this 3A and accessibility through the Water JPI website. Well, finally, I would not like to finish this presentation without warmly thanking people who have made possible, well, the success of the project and the publication of the 3A 2.0 in due time. And many special thanks to all partners for their continuous reactivity, feedback, and hard work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for that. And you can now consign it to something you have done, and you can watch it sail away into the bright blue yonder. It is, of course, an iterative process. The process, I compared it to painting the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, because when you get to the end of the 3A, you start work immediately on version 4. And indeed, some of that initial work is already beginning, so it never ends. And now I'm going to vacate this chair and hand over to Miguel, 15 minutes behind time, which I apologize for, Miguel. It's because these people just wouldn't come back on time from their coffee. That's what I'm blaming. And I leave you to start the round table, and I would invite each of the speakers at the first round table to come and join us here.
Okay, everyone seated and identified. Good morning. My name is Miguel Gilardan from the Spanish Ministry of Economy and Competitiveness. It is my pleasure to moderate the roundtable, where we have a theme which is which priorities for such as RIA. Now you are more familiar with the document, thanks to the presentation by Patrick. And let me introduce you to the participants in this roundtable, starting from right far. Dorkrol, he is director of the Water Supply and Sanitation Technological Platform. He's worked in the last years in policy issues and in promoting interaction between stakeholders, and he's also involved in the Water JPI in some extent, since WSSTP is a member of the Stakeholder Advisory Group. Next, Seppo Rekolainen. He's director of the Freshwater Center at the Finnish Environment Institute. He's also a researcher in the institute with an understanding profile in water research. And he's also familiar with the Water JPI. He's vice chair of the Scientific and Technological Board. Next, Karoli Kovacs. He's president of the European Water Association with a long-term professional experience in the field of water industry, and in various issues related to that. On my left side, close to me, Heather McCann. She is from the French National Institute for Agricultural Research and is also working as a European Affairs Officer at INRA. And he's also coordinating the FACE JPI, which is very closely related to the water JPI and collaborating in some topics. Next is Roberto Socchi. He's member of the executive team of Euro, also with large experience in water management, resources, also in economy regulation. And he also has executive experience in research innovation at the Water Research Center. On far on my left side, Antonio Loporto. Antonio is researcher at the Italian Water Research Institute, and he has expertise in several topics related to water resources and river basin management. And he's also chair of the European Network for Public Freshwater Research Organization. He's also familiar with the Water JPI. He's chair of the Stakeholders Advisory Group of the Water JPI. So our task in this roundtable is to debate about the SRIA possible priorities. You have seen the SRIA has a pivotal role in the Water JPI, and that's why we had devoted so important efforts, resources, and time to elaborate the document that you saw in the presentation by Patrick. It's a document where we mainly have ideas. We have research needs. We also have some time frames for addressing these ideas. But in addition to that, we need actions. We need action to address these ideas. And we had also a companion document, very important, which is the implementation plan, another important document in the Water JPI, where we have defined which actions we have to carry out to address the RDI needs. And when the thing comes to actions, is when we realize that we have limited resources, we cannot take care of all their research needs, or at least we cannot take care of them at the same time, and we need to prioritize. And that's when we engage with the topic of this roundtable. How can we prioritize when addressing these RDI needs? I would like to raise a couple of comments, remarks, or questions so that we can start the debate. One of them is that in the elaboration of our SRIA, we have identified all the documents with similarities, and in some points we have a common vision. In some points we have a vision more focused in our vision document, and in what extent this document should give similar or different priorities to the RDI needs that have been identified. Should each organization have different priorities? Should we all identify the most important and focus all of us in them? And in addition to this, these are living documents. So as we elaborate documents, other issues can pop up, maybe emerging issues, new problems, needs we have detected, new advances in knowledge and technology, also new documents such as the Sustainable Development Goals we have been listening about. So are there anything of these new issues missing in our documents? So these are my remarks to start with the debate. Maybe we can start in the same order as in the presentation. So Dirk, please.
Okay, then. So, I'm sorry I can only see part of the room, but I will know and then look at to the other side. So about the questions about how the different research agendas and organizations align. I think we've seen in Panos' presentation already that there are, I would say, outside the Commission, there are three main organizations which I would say set priorities, which are the EIP on water, the JPI water, and WSTP. Each of these organizations have their own founding documents. The EIP water has the strategic implementation plan. The EIP, now the JPI on water has its strategic research agenda, and also WSTP, we have our water vision and also our strategic innovation and research agenda. Now, of course, we are looking at this from different perspectives. The JPI water is primarily, I would say, led from the perspective of public research institutes, national governments. While WSTP, we are, I would say, we are a multi-stakeholder forum. Our members include multinational corporations, research institutes, universities, utilities, the supply chain, so the technology suppliers, and large industrial and agricultural water users. So as a whole, we are industry-led. Yeah? Now, of course, what binds us all together is water, but naturally, if you look at how the organizations are built up, our perspectives will be different. Yeah? And I think that is also, will also be reflected in our different documents. If I look, for example, at, we're also right now working on a new Water Vision 2030, on a new Strategic Innovation and Research Agenda 2030, and have a look at simply how the chapters in the documents are organized, you can clearly see that are different. I mean, the document is not finished yet, but if I look at our vision, Strategic Research Agenda, the chapters will be more or less the value of water, technologies, green and gray infrastructures, and governance. Yeah, so clearly, and I think there is added value in this combination of approaches. I think we are very complementary, and I think that's good. I think it's also very important that we are in close coordination. So that's very important. I mean, WSTP is an active member of the Stakeholder Advisory Board of the JPI. Also, when we initiated our revision of our Water Vision and Strategic Innovation Research Agenda, of course, we hired a consultant to help us with this, and we immediately said, we don't want you to be that original. There is a lot of information out there. So the strategic, the SIRA of the SRIA of the JPI has also been an important building block for us to consider, to take into consideration when we were building our new strategic innovation and research agenda. Yeah. So I think with that, I quite well answered the first question. Then let me see about the emerging topics or important challenges. I think one of the important challenges is not that much with regard to the specific content of our mutual SIRAs. It's about making water important. Yeah? Because, I mean, time and time again, what we notice is that water is a very ephemeral topic. I mean, today people will say, water is important. If you speak to a politician, if you speak to a decision maker, of course they will recognize the importance of water. Yeah? But as soon as you move away, the water drops again on the agenda. Yeah? This is very different from a topic like energy. Yeah? Energy goes up, remains important. Yeah? Water, it's constantly we have to throw up the ball of water. Yeah? Water is also a very transversal topic, a very fragmented issue, which is also a tremendous challenge to make water important. Yeah? Because, I mean, we've seen this change, well, in Horizon 2020, to give you an example. Yeah? Horizon 2013, 2015, we've seen water as a standalone topic. Yeah? Sometimes justly this was criticized, water transversal topic, so why not mainstream water? In principle, nothing wrong with the concept. The thing is, if you mainstream something and you do not define ownership of the topic, it dissolves. And that's what we've seen in the work program 2016-2017. Yeah? Water became a transversal topic, so it had to be integrated in. Well, to give you a few examples, Societal Challenge 2, which is on energy. Societal Challenge 3, yeah, which is on food. Societal Challenge 5, which is our natural habitat, yeah, but also Societal Challenge 7, which deals with security, yeah. Then in the different parts of industrial leadership and future and emerging technologies. But there is nobody taking charge of these issues, yeah. I'm being reminded that I should not speak too long, so I will close my contribution with this for the moment and add on later. Yeah? Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Dirk. Seppo, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think my colleague Dirk Kroll covered the first question about the role of different initiatives very well, so I do not have very much to add to that. I agree that very much, so my comments goes more to the second question about the content and priorities of the strategic research agenda. I have had an opportunity to participate in some of the consultative meetings and participatory meetings when developing the first version, now the second version of the SRIA, and it has been a nice, good experience, and this process, I'm pretty sure it guarantees that the important issues are there, so it's hard to see that there's anything missing. Maybe the negative point in this kind of a process is that we all researchers, research managers, we see important those issues what we have been doing and concentrating and where we have expertise, including myself, and then we try to keep on studies on these issues, and sometimes we then see as a result in this kind of agents some issues which have been already studied quite much, and that makes it very important actually to make the priorities, so that maybe not paying attention to all issues which are written in SRIA, but try to pick up those which needs more attention, more research, and where there are more open issues and gaps, and put funding on these. So SRIA certainly covers a very wide range of water-related issues from technical, environmental, political, societal point of view, and maybe not much is missing there. But when we develop SRIA further on, which I think we anyway have to do because the world is changing so rapidly around us, and new issues are popping up, and when developing it further, I think it is maybe a good thing to have a look about the other societal processes and structures what are around us, and I not only mean about the links to food security and energy security, talking about the food, energy, water nexus now, but also beyond that. And I can give you an example from my own country. Some 10-15 years ago, when the metal prices in world markets were very high, and together with some public subsidies, the mining industry started growing very much in my country, and some other countries as well, not only in Finland. And new mines were opened, many of them. And this resulted in water quality problems, also water resources problems, because some of the mining industries, they use a lot of water. And we had to pay much more attention to that, and very rapidly, and couldn't clearly give answers to those demands which popped out very rapidly. And now when the market prices of metals are very low, these same mines are closed. The first one bankrupted last week, the second one will be closed most probably this summer, and then we have another problem, what to do with mine tailings. So this is another example, just one example, so you can easily find many other examples which goes beyond water community, which goes beyond the food, energy community. In fact, every single political decision, new legislation, new strategy has an impact on waters, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly, sometimes minor impact, sometimes a little bit more major impact. So I think this is something what we have pay more attention to, and this can be also clearly seen when looking at SDGs, which were presented by FAO this morning, and this present SRIA version 2.0 this pretty well covers the SDG 6, which is for the waters. Maybe as a not the development aspect as well, but the other aspects pretty well. But if you look at the other SDGs, for example, SDG 3, which is good health and well-being, SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities, SDG 12, responsible consumption and production, we can easily understand that water is there as well. And if looking at the sub-themes there, water is very often mentioned, sometimes maybe not mentioned, but it's there anyway. And even in SDGs like is it number 16, which says about peace, justice, and strong institution, there's a clear link to water, not only because we have 2 global water conventions now in force since 2015, so we probably need more research on how effective is the international law to govern waters, especially in transboundary context, because well, most of the global population is situated in transboundary river basins, and that is a very important issue also for research. There's one more aspect what I would like to raise here is that is the collaboration with countries outside Europe and outside EU. And it's very good to see that now for these recent calls and coming calls, there are more and more countries outside EU coming in. But maybe we could have a look if more emphasis should be put on this issue to get more countries and countries a little bit bringing more emphasis also, and important countries like India and China. Europe cannot close its borders. We have to work together with other continents and other countries and other regions as well. So I will stop here and hand it over to Chair.
Okay, thank you. Karoli, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I would like to start with the statement that this agenda is a very impressive one, and if previously it was a thank you for the collaborators or cooperative parties, I would say congratulations to all of you. On the other hand, my first thought I would dedicate to the question of limited resources. Why are these resources limited? Because the market is some way limited, regulated, heavily regulated, the water market. And there comes the question whether only this, let's say, agenda should be or would be realized, or like a top-down story, or something from the bottom and in the local and on the places at the industry could be realized and done, or where the resources might come from for research and development. And there I would like to draw your attention to some figures, contradicting ones. The UNEP has made a study about the next coming 25 years developing infrastructure, urban infrastructure, including everything, energy, the transportation, telecommunication, gas, electricity, etc., and water. What would you guess the water-related infrastructure is? Which part of all this story? I would not go around, but I tell you, it's for its own more than 50% compared to all the others. All the others together are less than water. And on the other hand, if you look at the statistics, then you can see that the household expenditures are, if you compare all the energy, transportation, telecommunication, and water-related expenditures from a family, then by far the water is the least position in all these expenditures. So basically there is something wrong with the valuation of the story. And I can tell you that it's nice to speak about the rainwater harvesting and reuse of water on Brussels level commission strategic coordination group meetings. We are talking about how to improve technologies and techniques. In most of the cases, I can tell you there are techniques and technologies. The problem is that until the water cubic meter one does not cost anything, no one will go for reused water, or no one will invest in harvesting rainwater, even not in regions where there is scarcity or partial scarcity of water. So our position and my proposal would be, if coming from the bottom or even prioritizing to pay attention to these social, economical issues, research the real and redefinite the capacity or willingness to pay, and come away from this something like 2% of the family income, because if we look around and if we consider the climate change and all these stories, then the times which are coming will prove that we will have to spend more for water. And then in this case there will be local money for research and development, because even with these programs we need the local participants to enter. And our problem is that in many of even EU countries, not the operation and maintenance costs are not covered, not speaking about the reinvestment of the existing assets. So if speaking about research and development, please let's research and let's have a look at the affordability issues, the cost recovery. How do we not have, since 16 years, since the Water Framework Directive is existent, how do we not have an indicator for cost recovery? So that would be a nice topic to develop. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolee. Heather, please.
Okay, well, I'd like to start by congratulating the Water JPI on this very, very nice SRIA, which, having done similar work for FATCA JPI, I know is a lot of work. And so I just like to mention, we also have 5 core research themes, which are, I'll mention briefly because you'll see that the interactions between water and FATCA JPI are very strong. We have sustainable food security under climate change. We have sustainable intensification of agricultural systems, which of course implies water. We have synergies and trade-offs between food supply, biodiversity, and ecosystem services, and then adaptation and mitigation to climate change. So I think that Maurice mentioned a few research areas that would be important to go forward. And among those were, for example, less water consuming plants. So obviously you see that there's a very strong link between what we can do. And I think that to go forward, in fact, the question was, one of the questions was about what the overlaps are with other initiatives. Well, I think it's very important in creating this kind of agenda to take into account the whole perimeter of your research area. So, I mean, but we do have some overlaps. And where I think it's really important is to use those overlaps and to use an expression that we use a lot in joint programming, which is alignment, which is to look, and which is what we've done, and see where those overlaps are and create alignment and synergy. And as you probably are aware, in Waterworks 2015, we worked very closely, FATCA JPI with the Water JPI, to have a joint call. As a result, we had, I would say, the call is now closed. It was a very successful ARANET call. As far as, I mean, in my experience, it's the most successful one I know of. So this was really a very fruitful way of going together forward in synergy. And I think when we look at the different, the strategic research agendas between FATCA and water, well, clearly there's a way forward. And given the broad scope of the Water JPI, it's not just with FATCA JPI, but as was mentioned earlier, with the Climate JPI and with a number of other different initiatives. I think, with the JPIs, that because they have the similar goals and bringing together alignment of public research, there's certainly some it makes a lot of sense to perform alignment between JPIs. And as I said, this has been a way very successful. And what I'd also like to highlight is in Waterworks 2015, a number of international partners came on board. And that's very, very good for Water JPI and also for FATCA JPI, because it's a way of bringing in, because these are global questions, and we need to bring in the international partners. And I think you're going to discuss international cooperation a little bit more this afternoon. But so I'd like to say that for me, in terms of other initiatives, it's really important to work together and identify where we can be working in synergy. I think that in terms of emerging challenges, I think that the SRA is very complete. I'd like to just reiterate what Dirk said, which is that I think that making water important and really sensitizing people and education about the importance and the value of water, because if we don't do something now, well, we know that we have we have some big problems. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Heather. Your turn, Roberto, please.
Yes, my turn. Thank you very much, Miguel. First of all, I'm pleased that this event has been hosted in my town. So I'm really pleased that you see, how good it is and how magnificent it is. Also the water, I have to say, not just because we are providing this. Anyway, just a little bit of history. You already made my profile, but I'm now here representing Eurodat. It is the manager, the Federation of the Water Manager Association in all the European countries. But my background, 25 years ago, I was the responsible for the Italian subsidiary of WRC, so research activity. In 2000, I made a joint venture with Acea, and what I'm usually to say is that now I enter into a belly of a manager, so I was able to see this aspect of research, of innovation mostly, from both sides, also because now I'm still in the board of WRC UK, and I'm a director or senior manager of Acea. So I have this prospection, and I'm really pleased about this program, but I would like just say two things from the side of the water manager. First of all, Dirk, you are absolutely right. The sensibility about the water is important. If you go to our site, to the Euro side, you see that our motto is water matters. And this is one of the most important things that we have to do, to let the people to understand how important is the service of having water in the houses, and mostly to just push a button and everything disappears and do not pollute the water. And that is important because it's not easy to let people to understand this. It's not easy to let people to understand how difficult it is to do our job. But just about that, just about research, one important thing to say is that we are absolutely an important player in the research and innovation activity as a water manager. And believe me, just to move water manager into innovation is not easy, because water is one of the most conservative sectors, just because we are monopolists, because we do not have the push to innovation that the free market gives to every company. So we have an important thing to, or better, we must have competitive surrogation. That means that we have the regulation that have to be, for us, the way to be more competitive, to have much more innovation, is try to change things. Because we have to have not a direct market competition, but we have a competition on the basis of some targets that regulation and regulator give us. So that, I believe, is one of the things that I also suggest. I have seen the team of the program of SRIA that are really interesting, and I've seen that is important, the one in rising the competitiveness of the water sector, and it's important to try to include also the regulation. Regulator made an European association that is called WREG, that is water regulation. So I advise to have this kind of relationship, because it's important that all the innovation activity would be also recorded and things. And last, I believe that, again, Dirk, but just because it was first, because, you know, I know him since a long time, and he's my friend. And just to say, in Euro, we decided that directly the manager, so the association, referred to the innovation and to research to WSSTP, because, as I said, we are important as recipient. Because in our sector, in the water management, is the supply chain that do the real research, including in the supply chain also the research institute and the other. But it's absolutely important to have a manager that are sensible to innovation, because we buy solution, usually. We are not involved directly in research, but it's absolutely important because we are the one that apply the research, that we feed the ideas and the innovation to be tested and to be applied and developed. We know that water is a local business, but with global implication, because you produce a new valve for my needs, and you can sell the innovation that you have done all over the world. So it's absolutely important, our role in this, and to have this, confined in our sector. That means testing and having, let's say, facilitation to apply the solution that the supply chain will do. I have also a suggestion for a team, but I don't know if you want me to say now or later, because I believe that one of the major points is asset. One of the major points that we have is long-term investment in asset. That, I mean, is actually our things, but I just want you to think about the situation. We all manage assets that have been built one over the other, in a sense that after the Second World War, there was the booming of the population, so a lot of new assets for drinking water and the other, rising the level of services. Then in the 70s and 80s, wastewater, the sensibility for the environment, and we made a lot of assets, sewage treatment, whatever. Now we are rising the standard and new assets. But the problem is that those assets need to be properly maintained. We have to take care of the serviceability of those assets, because otherwise we leave a big problem to our children, for the simple reason that most of those assets has been built on public money, rising the debt of the member states, like Italy. So leaving a big problem to our children. If we do not properly take care of the serviceability of the asset, we have a big problem. Just to number and just split. Italy invests very low. And we are trying now with the new regulation system to rise this investment level. And we are now at about 35, 40 euro per person. Other European, let's say, with a very good service, invest 100 to 120, 129, Denmark, euro per person. The value of the asset, if I would like to make from scratch, new, is about 3,000, 6,000 euro per person. So we are investing in global 100 or 150 of the value of the asset that we have to build from scratch. So that is something that I believe is an important issue, and we should invest also in research and activity in developing asset integrity management techniques, something that give this focus on water and asset. Water matter, but also asset matter, because a service. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad to know about these comments on asset, because one of the topics that was included in the RIA was research in asset management. So it's good to know that the view of the managers is well reflected in this RIA. So Antonio, your turn, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your introduction, you mentioned the Euraqua. Euraqua is the network of the public reference research institutes on freshwater into the EU member states. We are now 25 member states represented into Euraqua. We look at the water panorama from a peculiar point of view, from the point of view of, from the perspective of public interest. And in this dark age of economic crisis, the attention tends usually to be conveyed to market-oriented and to market-oriented issues to try to improve job creation and economic growth. This is fine, we support it, of course. But this sometimes can lead, and we think that actually it does, to oversee some issues that are not directly or obviously linked to market creation and economic growth. For example, water conservation and river basin management, where industrial interest is somehow lower than expected. Euraqua really welcomes the SRIA from the Water JPI, the approach into this SRIA, that in our view must complement the approach that is currently present in Horizon 2020. Many of our issues, the issues that Euraqua consider to be hotspots, relevant issues, are present into the SRIA, and I know that are present into the SRIA of the FACE JPI because we somehow cooperated with both of them. So we are happy with those SRIA. We just want to highlight a couple of issues. First of all, we want to say that Euraqua is developing our own research agenda, our own perspective on research issues on water, and we will distribute and we will publicly, demonstrate the content. We have all highlighted four big level issues. One is on extreme hydrological events, of course, floods and droughts. And this is somehow linked to an issue that has been mentioned by the previous speaker. That is regarding the aging water infrastructures, which is a big problem that can have negative reflections on drought and even on floods. Second issue is about the combined threats from chemical pollution. That is the issue of the emerging pollutants. Nothing to say about that. We are happy with the content of the SRIA. We want to raise an issue regarding the third subject that we highlighted, ecosystem enhancing services application in application of nature-based solutions. It does not be said, if I am not wrong today, that Europe is going to fail probably in the implementation of some water-related directives. For example, the Water Framework Directive. It is a matter of fact that very few rivers have reached the good ecological status, which is the main subject of the Water Framework Directive. There are many reasons for that. First of all, the large access to the issue of the large access to the declaration of exceptions for heavily modified rivers that currently are very unknown how to be handled. There is the provision to be named as heavily modified rivers, but nobody knows what to do after that. And there is also some other issue that I'm been saying many times. We know we have tools and knowledge to make the rivers reach the good hydrological status, the good chemical status, but we have no clue how to go from this good hydrological and chemical status to a good ecological status. Still, there is research to be done in this issue. A lot of effort has been done in this way, but still some research must be done, and this must be present, in our view, into the Water Framework Directive revision that is meant to happen within 2019. Also, we would like to point out that some specific attention must be devoted to special kind of rivers that are high energy rivers, small rivers, but with high energy. I'm speaking about rivers in Italy, Greece, Balkans, in some part of Spain and France, maybe, where there is almost no floodplain, and where the energy is very high, so it is very difficult to handle those rivers in which they pass from very high flow to zero flow in a few days, and where the length of the zero flow days is very elongated during the year, and climate change can worsen it. Also, the last of the 4 points that we raised is basin-wide management issue. We know how to. There is some knowledge about how management practices provided that must be planned into the program of measures. We know how they are. Their functioning, and we know also about their efficiency, but we do not know what happens at the basin scale from the complex patchwork of management practices placed now and then there into the basin. We have to develop knowledge and tools to be able to design better program of measures. And to conclude, I want to stress another, let's say, organizational issue. Water JPI, not only Water JPI, all the JPIs mostly relate on aeronets. And this is a very good tools because since they are based on variable geometry, it allows countries to be involved according to their willingness, to their interest in the specific topic of that aeronet. But to be efficient, these tools, the aeronets, it is needed that member states, founding countries, devolve a sufficient, a minimum level of funding. Sometimes the contribution from member states is so low, so ridiculous sometimes, that it is not enough to support efficient and serious research projects. With very few, sometimes tens of thousands of euros, you cannot do a research project, an efficient research project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Antonio. So we have in the table different opinions, different views from different sectors, the research opinion, the managers, the companies, the market. So any replies?
I would add something. It was mentioned that many things in this questionnaire are public. And it was also a word about public procurement. Public procurement for research and development is something special. But what I mean is, as we have in the new EU legislation, the life cycle costing and the evaluation of public procurements based on life cycle costing, I would suggest that when doing research and development, then all researchers should focus on, if it's about some sort of solutions, that these solutions might have possibly the lowest life cycle costs. So that's something I wanted to add.
Please. Dirk, please.
Yeah, well, perhaps building a bit on my earlier statement, I think, for example, looking at the short term, where I think we all want to make sure that water is well represented in the future work program of Horizon 2020. It is really important that we build a strong case for water. Yeah? And I really look forward to working together with the JPI Water to ensure that water will be well represented. But I am also looking to each and each one of you, which are in connection with your national member states, yeah, to make sure that from your perspective, water is pushed strongly in a holistic way. Yeah? Not only directly, but for example, there is now the circular economy, which is discussed by the Council. Yeah? It is very important that we get water in there, because making water visible there has a reflection on how water is perceived in general, and then will trickle down again to Horizon 2020. I have very good news. Today the Council working groups are discussing the last draft, and water is in there right now. So I think that is very good news. But in general, I think too much we're focusing, as a water sector, we're focusing too much on our direct interest, while we should also take the larger picture in perspective, because only by doing that we can make sure that water gets a stronger position in general, which will then trickle down to serve our direct interests. Yeah?
Thanks, Dor. That's good news. And that's the result of lobbying groups trying to push water issues. And
amongst others.
Like us. And I would like to comment something on that, to raise an additional question. And most of the documents we have, most of the programs are programs that are reached through consultation, and in this consultation, some lobbies are involved. Not only lobbies from the industry, the market, but also from research that lobby around the topic. So do you think that the priorities can be set in a fair way? Can we get rid of excessive lobbying exercises when setting priorities?
Sorry, I just take the floor for the simple reason that, as you have understood, Euro is a lobbying organization. Especially in Italy, lobby is not a good word. You know, when you think about lobby...
Because we have no regulation. We have no regulation.
You're right. You're right. Right. The real term and the pure term, the right term of a lobbyist is, or a lobby, is a person that provides proper information. So lobbyists and the lobby should be some sort of, I don't say education, but at least information activity that allow policymakers to widen the view that they have with the, let's say, understanding and things of the people that are involved indirectly in the business.
Very smart definition.
Yeah, you're right, you're right, you're right. Every one of us have the mind of the lobbyist of Thank You for Smoking movie. I don't know if you have seen it. If you don't have seen, please have a look to the Thank You for Smoking, because you know, it's absolutely you know, a character of the lobbyist that is important. But I believe that we have to just evaluate, or let's say, try to have this smart definition of a lobbyist, in a sense that lobby have to be something done, you know, in a clear way, something that has to be done in a proper, transparent way, that should have a benefit. Because, as I told you, the real meaning of a lobbyist, in my view, but not in my view, everyone you that do this job, is just to provide proper information and a view of the problem from the perspective of people that have some experience.
Any replies to this question? So can we open the debate to the audience? There's a microphone there.
Yeah, there is one at the back, please. Leonardo.
Thank you very much. Leonardo Piccini, TFB Be Water Project, which is reorganizing also stakeholder event in a funding agency with the JPI. I like the concept of the impact of urban, was mentioned from AWA, in particular the concept of the social implication. The European Commission also mentioned today where we are now in terms of crisis, in terms of refugees issues, which is also important. I would like to also draw attention that Network H2O, which is the network of cities and regions, we have two community groups. One is related to global cities and society. So we are very focusing to see the engagement of the city of the street. Secondly, we have another group in international cooperation related to water refugees. And I would like to put attention about this because if we are talking about what Durkee said, JPI is also focusing to public funding. We need to also focus into the public awareness. This is a very, very important point.
Any more opinions in the room? Okay, we are still in a schedule for maybe some. Oh, there's another here. Mats, please.
Mats Svensson from Sweden, the Swedish Agency for Marine and Water Management. 2011, we got a request from Denmark. They wanted to buy water from Sweden. The Swedish government didn't know how to answer that kind of request. And I mean, we are seeing ourselves as being water-rich countries still, even though we have some drought situations also in Sweden and so on. But I think also that this thing with an internal water market for Europe, that is a challenge that we should actually take on board from a water JPI perspective then also. I would like to hear your opinion about that kind of issue as well then also, because it's not the last thing. Norway, for example, they have a saying, when the oil is finished, we will sell water, for example. So what will happen here with the internal European water market then also? That's my question.
If I can say something, oh sorry. If I have no answer for you, but I want to say that you are not alone. Italy is going most likely to buy water. Okay, you are not alone. Italy is going to buy water from Albany probably in the next future. So it is a very big problem. I understand your point, your question, but I don't.
Dirk?
I think one of the main problems is, as you indicate, I mean, there is no market for water in Europe. Yeah? And that is also because, I mean, water is a very complicated topic. If you simply see it to use, yeah, you have water being used for domestic purposes, for industrial purposes, for agricultural purposes, for environmental purposes. Now, as soon as you start talking business and water, in a domestic context, you end up in a very sensitive debate. Yeah, and that's a debate you should avoid because it is a debate which will lead you nowhere. Yeah, so somehow I think we have to find a way around that issue, because you end up in a very politicized ambition. You end up in a debate on how water is managed, public, private. But public is not public and private is not private, because if you look at management, there are very different public ways of management, very different ways of private management. So it's a very complicated issue.
So, more replies. One from Roberto, please.
Not only this, because as you said, this is an issue. There are other strange, what you say about Italy and Albania, or just to tell you that in Austria there is a public company that do investment, have made a big, main trunk, and offer the water to the municipalities, saying that if you want my water, you have to buy this because I have done my investment. I would say one thing. I believe that we have to follow the same concept that we have in the Italian legislation, in my view. You know that we had a big debate about a referendum in 2011 that was just try to have a public management of the water, and there was a misunderstanding in my view, and the fact is that now we have just to have a big definition between ownership and service. And our legislation said that the water is public, and so there is any local authority that owns the water, because the water is public in all the Italian territory, but the service is different. So the service is something that, someone have to arrange, manage, and pay. So I don't know if we will be easy in Europe to have something like that, but if we have the possibility to have this concept enlarged at European basin level, saying that, water is for the European citizen, but that, as Duke was saying, means to have also some sort of political impact, not easy to manage. But in my view, the debate, as I told you, is not public, private, or whatever, because that management has to be efficient, that's it. And someone has to check that it's efficient, that that be either the regulator or where in a northern country in which they have the full cost recovery, they have benchmarking or other things that show that they are efficient. But that, I believe, that could be an answer. It's quite far away anyway.
So we have time for 2 more quick replies. First, Caroline, then Seppo.
Yeah, one information. There are European countries selling or providing water, even drinking water, to each other, and also exchanging wastewater. So some municipalities on the borders are giving, let's say, or transporting water and wastewater. So it's absolutely something what works, and there is no objection about it. But I would like to add one topic based on your example. What sort of water would it be? Just drinking water for drinking purposes, and there is some sort of market for bottled water, which I would like to stress to involve also into the water demand researches, because there is a development which is showing that people are losing the faith into tap water as drinking water, are going over to bottled water, and in even Eastern European countries, we are starting to spend more for bottled water. So all over the society than what we spend for, because of political and regulatory reasons, whatever reasons, for the total water service provided by utilities, which is crazy because we are using there 100 times more water than what we drink. So it's not a sort of competition, it's just a message how to communicate values and impacts if we do not consider these issues. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Well, Carolee already raised up the point what I wanted to say, that we have already a good market for bottled water in Europe and all around the world. And then that's there, and there's a proper price for water, for drinking water in that way. But bringing a huge amounts of water from the water-rich north to the south for agricultural purposes is a much more bigger thing, and there's no clear market for that. Building a market, then we could have a price for water, a proper price for water finally. But as Dirk said, it's at least as much political question as the oil market. So there are certainly a lot of restrictions and bottlenecks, and I think that we should do all what we can do to increase the water use efficiency before trying to develop the water markets for example, for irrigation. Thank you.
Well, we are reaching the final part of the session. Let me revise some of the ideas that came up. We have an added value in having complementary documents addressing the needs in terms of research, development, innovation. We should give priority to water as a whole. It's now very fragmented, but the first effort should be in water as a whole to make it important for society, for policymakers. We can also give some priority to holistic approach in those cases where boundary areas can benefit from the research. An example was in food production and water efficiency. The limited resources are a consequence of, let's say, low investment from public administrations. And also because there is a limited market, also a regulated market, and that's an issue for private investment. We need to make managers sensitive to innovation, so raising important research issues for them, such as asset management, maybe to also societal challenges, societal issues such as the trend in bottled water markets. And lobby is a desirable activity to bring information to policy makers, but provided that it is made in a clear and transparent way. Okay. Any other point that you would like to remark, very sharp as a bullet point? Okay, if not, I would like to thank all the participants in the round table for your nice. Okay. And after sorry, Patrick. Now we have time for lunch, and we also will have during lunch we'll have a poster session where it will be a good place to meet and debate around the poster and the projects that they are running now.
So, thank you, Chair.
Thanks to you.